Thanks for joining me as I make this easy, super simple and quick vegan bread recipe. It is dairy-free, no eggs, no milk. Here I'm just getting the sugar ready and I'm getting my bowl set. And now I'm just getting my warm water, my sugar, and my yeast into a bowl together. So when you put the warm water in with the yeast, it is going to help the yeast to bloom, which is what we really want when we're baking. And you'll see it here in a minute. It's going to look nice and frothy. Give it a nice stir to try and help dissolve some of the sugar, which will make it easily incorporated well. Here I'm just going to set it aside. It takes about 10 minutes. This is 6 cups of flour and a half tablespoon of salt. And then we're going to whisk it. When you whisk the flour like this, it gives air into the flour, and it also helps to separate any clumps that are in it to make sure that the flour is evenly distributed. And this is what it looks like. It looks absolutely beautiful, absolutely perfect to start adding to our mixture. We're just going to add that into our flour mixture once it's all nice and bloomed. You may have to scrape the bottom of a little bit. I had to because there was a little bit of sugar and yeast that stuck to the bottom. This is a 1/4 cup of olive oil. You can use any oil that you'd like though. Olive oil, of course, will give it a little more of that flavor. You can use regular vegetable oil, avocado oil, whichever one you'd like. And I'm just going to mix it really, really well now. On a clean, sanitized surface, I sprinkled my flour, and then I'm going to take my bowl with my dough in it and turn it out onto my floured surface. You can make sure that you get all the little bits that are in the bottom. It will all be well mixed in once we start kneading, as I'm doing here. Make sure that you are folding the bread over and into itself and then turning it. You do about a 1/4 turn every time, adding a little more flour as you go, because you can always add in more. You just can't take it out. And you're going to be kneading your dough for about 10 to 12 minutes if you do it by hand. If you're doing it with a mixer, it, of course, will not take quite as long. And you're just going to keep kneading it. Keep doing the folding, keep doing the 1/4 turn, and pressing the dough down into your surface. That is what is going to help. Here's a closer shot. And you're just going to keep making sure that you're doing that kneading motion of pressing down in, 1/4 turn, fold, and press in. And that is how you knead dough. Once your dough is nice and smooth, it should look like this. And it should have a little bit of bounce back to it. And we're just going to roll it into our nice dough ball. Here I'm just laying it and you just scoot it across your flat surface. And this will close up the bottom of the dough, which is really important because it will help with the quality of the rise that you get. Dough ball for its first rise, and it looks absolutely beautiful. Now, depending on how warm your kitchen is, I had an oven on and my space heater. It was so cold in my kitchen, and it took about an hour and a half for my dough to rise in the wintertime. Now you're going to take a bowl, a nice large one, because the dough will expand very nicely, and you're going to oil it really well with your favorite oil. I just use avocado oil here. And you're going to place the dough inside, turning it once to ensure that all sides are coated nice and evenly. And like I had mentioned about my cold kitchen, for this rise, I actually covered it with cheesecloth and loosely covered with a piece of aluminum foil. And now we're just going to get our 2 bread loaf pans, and I'm lightly greasing them with some avocado oil again. It is actually my favorite oil to use when baking. And you're just going to make sure that those get nice and coated. I grabbed my sauce brush for this one because it made it a lot easier to rub the oil around in the loaf pan. So just make sure that you get all of the sides covered so that way your bread doesn't stick into any of the corners or crevices that could be there. Now I checked my dough after about an hour and it still hadn't risen enough for me. This is not quite enough. You want it to be so that it's pretty much over the lip of the bowl. So I actually covered it back up and I put it back on my stove for another 45 minutes. Now this is absolutely beautiful. This is definitely more of what I want when I'm making bread dough. It is so light and fluffy. You just gently press the air out. Oop, I had a little oil fly out from underneath. And you're just going to have your clean surface again, and you're going to turn your dough out onto it. Don't worry too much about flour because it doesn't stick very well due to all the oil that's on the dough. So now I'm going to take my dough and get my dough cutter, and we're just going to cut it in half. You want to try to cut it in as even pieces as possible. And these two halves will each be one loaf. You're going to separate them and just try your best to shape them into the shape of a loaf. And once you finish that, you just get your two greased bread loaf pans, and you're going to place each of the loaves in there, and you're going to let it rise for about another 45 minutes to an hour. You're going to preheat your oven to 350 degrees and bake both of the loaves in the oven for 30 minutes. And here they are. They are so good, really. You won't believe that they have no dairy at all. There's no milk, no eggs, as you saw. And it comes out so fluffy and so delicious and so soft. Look at how nicely this cuts. It's got a nice thin crust on the outside. It's white and fluffy and gorgeous on the inside. This is truly the best bread recipe I ever have. My kids, they ask for it all the time. I'm always making the bread for them. It disappears in 12 hours. Within 12 hours of making this, it was gone. That's how delicious it is. Thank you so much for joining me on this quick and easy vegan bread recipe. I hope you enjoy it. Let me know in the comments what happens. Like, subscribe, and have a happy new year.